Glad to hear it. Thank you. Before you adjourn, something that I'd just like to take issue to is something that Councilor Durfee just said, that the town can go get a permission to exceed the cap after the financial town meeting. And I've asked the solicitor that question several times, and I've gotten an answer that's compatible with what Ms. Durfee just said. So this is the first time I've heard it from a councilor, that after the financial town meeting, we can go up and get a waiver. And I guess then there's going to be a 4/5 vote after the meeting, and if there is a motion, if the levy that comes out of the meeting exceeds the cap, and the 4/5 vote does not succeed, then where are we left? We're in a quandary. So I'd like to understand, is it the position of the council, since the solicitor isn't here, that the town can go to Providence afterwards and get a permission to exceed the cap versus before the meeting? I think it's important for the taxpayers in the town to know that, because I think it's important that taxpayers defend themselves against the reality that basically that says there is no tax cap in Tiverton in this given year due to the huge revenue shortfall.
No, I don't think that one thing leads to the other. I think if the town seeks as to what it is eligible for, the town would have to make its case prior to the meeting. And loss of revenue, the debt service would not qualify. There's been no dramatic growth. We'd be looking at loss of revenue. And I think it is, I agree with you, that it's important that the taxpayers know what the town is eligible for. And that does not mean that we have no tax cap. We do have a tax cap. And it is defined by the eligibility. And we would have to get that certification from the state. So the taxpayers should be entitled to that. But there have been, and we have checked on this with other towns. I think they mentioned Woonsocket have gone after the meeting. But fear not, people are not going to vote just willy-nilly to increase their taxes at the financial town meeting, as you know.
Thank you. What's important to know, though, what's very, very important to know is, first of all, will this council, in the next 4 weeks before the meeting, be applying for a waiver or going to find out about those funds?
The eligibility.
Will the council do that? Because the budget committee is under the cap, and I have the charter right here, and per the charter, the official budget, the budget committee powers and duties to prepare and submit a docket for publication to the town administrator 30 days before the FTM, and number 5 in the powers and duties from the charter is to present the docket to the electorate at public hearing and the financial meeting. So the budget committee budget is the official budget.
Yeah.
So the situation to go to, the budget committee is under the cap. Now, those sheets that were in the backup that were presented by the town administrator seem to imply on those sheets at the top it said town budget and things, and I personally take issue with that because the official town budget is the budget committee budget. So in order to...
Yes, it is.
Okay, so if one were to go request a waiver or seek permission to exceed the cap, one would need to walk in and say, we're under the cap, but we want to get permission anyway.
Well, basically,
Okay.
no. I think what we're asking is to say that due to the conditions, what is our maximum levy? And that's what you're asking the state. You're asking the state doing this is what's your maximum levy allowable with the circumstances that exist in the town. You can propose a budget that falls well below that, and if it passes, that's the budget. It just says that you cannot exceed this levy due to the circumstances.
So,
and it's really a levy
We would
question.
be seeking, what is the town eligible for?
right.
Now what a request is for.
And if the policy that was discussed several weeks ago were passed, it required the budget submitted to the financial town meeting to be the budget that would generate the switch to go get that permission, if you read that closely. So, my point is that the budget committee budget,
Yeah, the policy, as I recall all of our discussion,
Yes.
was a meeting between the town administrator, budget committee chairman, and treasurer to see if there was reason to seek. And that's the meeting.
right, and the next section was number 2, where it specifically said that a budget from the town to exceed the cap was necessary, and that's where we don't have that condition. Now, I know the policy didn't pass, and I don't want to belabor the policy, but what's going on right now is slightly different than that, than what the policy stated. And all I'm saying is that the taxpayers need to know if these 7 town councilors plan to send Mr. Gonsalvo up to get a waiver or permission or to seek that amount. Because if that's the case, the floodgates have opened, and there's a $1.5 million amount, $1.4 million shortfall. We all know the answer. There is no constructive reason right now to go get that permission. The budget committee is under the cap. So I think the taxpayers need to know, and I know this is probably the last budgetary meeting by the council, they need to know, is this body going to send Mr. Gonsalvo up to get a waiver? And that's an important point that needs to be fleshed out.
Jeff, I want to say this so that you can understand it. We're not seeking, I don't think, a waiver. We're seeking, what is the town eligible for, given these facts? That's all. That is not a waiver. How can I make it more? What part of that don't you understand? We're not seeking a waiver.
I guess I question why it's necessary to see what the town is eligible for. If the official town budget is under the cap, why do we need to even ask?
Because for the taxpayers, the financial town meeting, you're recommending a budget.
Yes, we are.
We're recommending a budget.
No, you requested a budget, and it's requested budget. You're not
I
recommending a
understand,
budget.
but we will recommend that at the financial town meeting, okay? The financial town meeting is king in this town. They will decide who is right. But they should have the information as to what they are eligible to spend. The budget committee has come in under the cap. They have made their decisions. The townspeople have the last word.
So I ask then, if it's the pleasure of this council to go to Providence to seek the maximum limit that could be allowed at this financial meeting, will the public get to witness a vote to seek that?
4/5 vote.
Not a 4/5 vote, a majority vote to seek that permission. I think that the taxpayers deserve a noticed vote on that point before.
If there is a request, it will be done at a regular council meeting, and I would think that would be on our agenda for Monday's meeting, because it would be the last meeting probably if there is no change in the financial meeting date. It has to be done, my opinion is, it has to be done by a motion of the council.
Okay. I'd also like to request, consistent with the policy, that if that does unfold, and we can discuss that on Monday, that the budget committee certainly have a seat at the table as that information is requested from the state.
You definitely do have a seat at the table, because my understanding is any meeting is between the treasurer, the administrator, and the budget committee
At the direction of the
at the direction of the council.
Well, wait a minute.
Well, I mean, I'm just.
Don, I want to be in Providence when the meeting happens.
No, I don't have
I mean,
a
it's
problem
probably
with.
going to be by a letter, is to say, here's the
situation.
issue. Everybody will get a copy of the letter. It's not going to be a meeting, it's
But
going to
it
be...
will definitely be